Hello all. Today we are going to discuss about Indian economy on the eve of independence. As we all know, India had an independent economy before the advent of the British. Though agriculture was the most important source of livelihood, most people depended on agriculture, but still India had a few industries, especially textiles, cotton and silk textiles, and some industries dealing with some precious stones, metals, etc. The products enjoyed a worldwide market because of its fine quality of material used and high standards of craftsmanship seen in imports from India. The economic policies pursued by the British in India were concerned more with the protection of the economic interests of the home country rather than the development of India. India was just a supplier of raw material and a consumer of finished industrial products during the British rule. Let us first see about the agricultural sector. During the British period, about 85% of the people depended on agriculture. They lived in villages and derived livelihood from either directly or indirectly from agriculture. Despite being an occupation of such a large population, the agricultural sector did not develop much. There was stagnation in this sector. This was because of the policies introduced by the Britishers during the colonial period. Let us first see about the salient features of India's agriculture during this period. So, Indian agriculture was backward and stagnant during the British period. Indians used primitive methods of cultivation. They did not have modern means of cultivation. It was subsistence agriculture that they followed, and they were not introduced to modern cultivation. Whatever was produced was consumed by the family, and there was very less to be sold in the market. Marketable surplus was either nil or it was very less. And moreover, farming completely depended on rainfall. So, cultivation throughout the year was not possible. It was only during the rainy seasons that they could cultivate crops. Irrigation facilities were not developed, so crop failures were common. People living near the water sources alone could cultivate at least two crops in a year. Otherwise, other people they had to completely depend on rainfall for cultivation. And most of the fertile land was owned by the landlords. The zamindars took away the fertile land from the poor farmers forcibly, and many farmers had become landless, either because the farmers borrowed money from the landlords and they were not able to repay it, so the land was grabbed away from them and they all became landless. And these landless tillers, they had to work on the land of the landlords. The farmers were also very poor and they did not have enough of capital to invest in agriculture. So even for this they had to borrow from the money lenders. And most of them they were illiterate and ignorant, and they were not aware of the modern farming methods. So there was no investment made in irrigation during the British period. Flood control measures were not taken up. Terracing and desalinization of soil was also not taken. Coming to the causes of agricultural stagnation, the land was owned by the zamindars. The zamindars collected heavy rent from the farmers. So this rent in turn the zamindars had to submit it to the Britishers. So when the Britishers levied a rent on the zamindars, the zamindars they collected excess rent from the farmers. Most of the time, the farmers were not able to pay the rent, and when the rent was not paid, the land was taken away from the farmers. Secondly, the government forced the farmers to cultivate cash crops instead of food crops, because Britishers needed these cash crops back home. Industrial revolution had just started in Britain. They needed raw materials, especially cotton, for the industries in Manchester, and that is why they forced Indians to cultivate cotton and indigo. And for this cultivation, the Britishers paid very low price for the crops. The farmers were left with nothing after the harvest. The profits earned from the agriculture went to the landlords. They were leading a luxurious life, and they were not investing in agriculture to modernize agriculture or anything except for collecting taxes from the people. The zamindari system. This was a land revenue system which was introduced by the British people in Bengal. Bengal was a very fertile province. The Gangetic plain flows through the Ganga, through the Bengal region, and Bengal was the first province to be conquered by the Britishers, because they felt this was a very fertile area and the best way and the best place to collect taxes from the farmers. Under this system, the zamindar became the owner of the land. A zamindar could own more than 6 to 8 villages, and he had to pay a fixed amount of tax to the government. So this tax he collected from the peasants or the farmers who cultivated on the land. It was and this tax the zamindars collected a higher tax than what the Britishers had levied on them. A part was kept as their profit, and the remaining was paid back to the Britishers. More than the Britishers, it was the zamindars who actually ill-treated the farmers. Commercialization of farming. Cultivation of crops for selling in the market is called commercial farming. The Britishers wanted raw materials, as we discussed earlier, for the industries. So they forced the farmers to cultivate cotton, indigo, sugarcane, jute, etc. And the farmers were paid very less for their crops. As they stopped the cultivation of food crops, especially wheat and rice, the staple food of India, they had to buy these food crops from the market. They did not have enough money, so many farmers had to starve. And this actually led to famine, the Great Famine in Bengal. This was not a natural famine, but a man-created famine, because along with commercial crops, wheat was also cultivated on a large scale, but this wheat was exported to Britain from India, because people in Britain had to prepare bread from wheat. So, farmers were forced to cultivate cash crops during the British period. They did not have much money with them because they were paid less for the crops what they sold to the Britishers. They were not allowed to cultivate food crops. So availability of food was very less, and then this led to famines. So this was the agricultural situation in India during the British period. Thank you.